This episode of Bass Freaks is brought to you by Dunlop Bass Strings. Dunlop Bass Strings are made in California and designed by the players at Dunlop to sound and feel the way a string should, with deep lows, strong fundamental punchy mids, and articulate highs. Dunlop Bass Strings offer a complete line with standard nickel and stainless round wounds, flat wounds, and super brights. They're also available in short, medium, and long scales, so go to jimdunlop.com and check out Dunlop Bass Strings. What is up, my friends? Welcome to Dunlop Presents Bass Freaks. This is a place for all of us bass freaks to chat it up, gain a little insight and inspiration, and have some fun with some great bass players, including the one we have here today, Mr. Marien. How are you, brother?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. This is so great to connect with you. Dude,
likewise. Thank you for coming on. What are you doing?
Oh, today?
Today.
Right. Today, there's a storm rolling through outside, so I was just kind of like hunkering down and like just kind of watching all the leaves fall. I mean, like, officially, like, today's the day, like, where they're all just getting blasted off the trees and watching them all fly around the yard. It's kind of nice. It's kind of cool.
That's kind of beautiful. I enjoy little moments like that.
Yeah,
being present in those moments for me is a huge thing. Nice. Dude, so let's just jump right in here. I've been watching some of your bass playthroughs on Instagram, and I'm blown away. Not only is the playing awesome and the parts are great, the videos are very cool too. It's kind of like this throwback 80s retro meets futuristic jazz odyssey stuff. So I dig it. Everybody, you should follow Evan on. What's your Instagram page?
Instagram is instagram.com. What is it? At Evan Marien. It's just my name, I believe. It's like EvanMarien.
Very cool. Yes, make sure you check them out because those videos are really entertaining.
Oh, thanks, man.
What basses are you playing?
Oh, geez. I have them all here. I just moved recently, and it's like the first time in my life that I've actually been able to like have all my basses out on like stands and it finally dawned on me that I have a lot. Like, I have a lot of basses, but I keep pretty much primarily coming back and playing my brown Ken Smith bass. It's like a, from my research, I think it's like a 1999 BSRB, which like Ken Smith only made like maybe 2,000 of them or something. Like, it was like a limited run.
How'd you get your hands on that?
So in like 2007, I was looking up Ken Smiths on eBay, and there's a music store in Nashville, actually. I don't remember which store, but it was a music store, and they had this that bass, that brown Ken Smith that I play, and it was like, I don't know, it's like $700 at the time, and I had a Warwick at the time, like in Boston with me, that I wasn't really kind of digging that much anymore. So I was kind of like, maybe I could trade, or trade it in, basically. And ended up talking with this music store and traded my Warwick. I shipped that to them, and then got the Ken Smith shipped to me. And then that's just been basically my main axe ever since.
Very cool. The tone is, and I know a lot of it has to do with your technique, but the tone is very punchy. It sounds really cool.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, it's just my favorite bass. I've spent the most time with it, for sure. Yeah. It's like I've had it for now. I mean, I guess it's like, if it was 2006 or so, like maybe like 15 years ish or something like that. And it's definitely the one that I've like learned. It's like I've learned everything on it. Like, I've practiced the most on it. And
yeah, what do you love about it?
The neck's really, the neck's like not too, I was going to say it's thin, but then now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, it's not that thin. It's just like the right kind of feel. It's not too thin, not too thick. The string spacing is really tight. I guess that's probably my favorite thing. Okay. The string spacing's like like the distance, in between the strings. It's like, I don't know, it's really tight. It's probably like actually, I think it's less than 16 millimeters. It's really tight. Most like Fenders and things in like even Foderas, I think the lowest they go is like 17.5 millimeters or something. So this is like almost like the string spacing of like a tenor bass or something. Okay. Really, really tight. And so it's it's easy for my technique, like that claw grip, the banjo.
Yeah, I was gonna say the banjo thing. I was what was for one of your tunes, Forever. I was watching the bass yesterday. I was watching the run through,
thanks, man.
I didn't even realize that you were using that technique a lot until I watched that. I was like, oh, okay, it's like the banjo thing. So you play pretty softly, gently on your touch.
Yeah, I think so. It's like I try to like let like the gain, like the on my preamp or like on my amplifier live, like kind of do most of the heavy lifting, and then I kind of back off my touch from there, and then I use like it's a combination like with my left hand technique too, which is like more legato style technique, like like what shred guitar players use.
So
it's
would you say you're a bass shredder? I think.
I have friends that call me that, and I'm like, all right, I guess I am.
I'll take it. Yeah,
I'll take it, man. It's cool. Like I'm into everything and anything, honestly. Like I listen to all kinds of music. I listen to all kinds of players. I love all styles. I love all styles of players. It just kind of boils down to music, right? Like it's just good music is good music, and I dig it.
What kind of stuff inspires you?
Oh man, I think lately, speaking like presently, I think probably like there's this guy Bill Wirtz, who I've just been really, really into his music. He's kind of like an interesting cat. He makes and uploads videos like animations on YouTube, but he also sings. I think I was actually at Berkeley with him at the same time too. Like I think
so you're okay. You went to Berkeley. All right.
I went to Berkeley up in Boston, like 2006 to 2009. Lannon, like that whole like time period was really cool. Like the classmates that I was like in school with, basically, like. So presently it's like guys like Bill, who I'm somewhat connected to through Berkeley, and then like Adam Neely's new project called Sungazer. I've been really digging that, their new album. I've been putting that on a bunch and just like being like, man, and I was at Berkeley with Adam too. We graduated together, and so there's all these like, it's this weird Berkeley connection thing. It's like somehow, some way you can always just kind of trace back everything and anything that I'm like kind of digging on or listening to possibly that, at least, But yeah, lately it's been that kind of stuff. It's been I don't know. It's Bill's style of music is especially like very it's just very intricate and like very like cleverly crafted and very lyrically driven, and the melodies are just so sing-songy that they just stick in your head. And I just wonder how he just all does it. It's like one of those things where I'm like, how does he do that? It blows my mind. So I've been really digging on him, and
I absolutely love those moments where you're listening to something and you can sort of visualize what it is, but you're wondering in your head, how in the hell did you do that? And
yeah, man. I mean, that's like I guess it's like it's just music. Like there's two ways. It's like you watch a player do something like that, and you go, wow, how the hell did they play that? Yeah. And it's actually, I don't really. It's like with players, I'm like. I don't really do that. It's like it's more in music. It's like when something's so crafted and like put together so well, right. Just melody, harmony, bass, right? Well, like those three things, and it's just so and counterpoint and stuff like that. I get just blown away by that kind of stuff. So yeah,
it causes a reaction for sure.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome, man. How did you? I know you're into the short scale thing, right?
Yeah. So I got a Supro bass like a couple years ago.
Okay.
And man, that thing just like blew my mind. Like I got it and I was like, ooh, I like this. This is cool. Like I can stretch a little bit. It's like a little bit just easier to play with like my technique, and I was like, ooh, this is like this is cool. And then Sarek in Chicago, Jake Sarek.
Love those basses.
Man, those are incredible. Like we have a weird connection. Like he went to high school with like one of my really, really good friends, and so like it's just like this weird, it's like 1 degree of separation. We got connected through him, And then like I've been kind of like just watching him build these really cool, just like at first I think they were long scale maybe or something. Like he was making, I mean he makes long scale basses, but I kind of saw that he had started doing short scales and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I saw that he started doing short scale 5 strings and I was like, ooh, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I want one. like, let me email him. I want to buy one. Like, I want it. Like, I want to like just do this right and just like, I want one. Like, I want one. And it didn't take him that long to build it. I mean, this was back a couple years ago before. He's now pretty busy, but and it's a small operation, but he builds everything by hand, and I think he's just great. He's a cool guy too, and just builds great instruments. And now he can do 24 fret builds too, like
wow.
5-string 24 fret short scale, and I just think that's the coolest thing ever.
Huh. I hadn't seen those yet. Actually, I gotta.
Oh man. Well, I don't know if he like. I mean, he did it for my new one that I have. Like I asked him, I was like, and 24 frets? He was like, sure. I was like, phew.
Why not? Why not?
I was like, phew. The first one I have only has I think 21 or 20, and some of the stuff that I've written, like with me and my buddy Dana Hawkins, some of those melodies I've started like on the 23rd fret or something, and I'm like, oh crap, like I want to bring this bass on the road, but I don't have the frets. Like, oh crap.
You just need more.
Just need more, man.
Yeah.
Now I need a bass with like 26 frets, just in case,
Builders out there, you heard it first. There it is. So, dude, let's talk about some of your history as far as gig-wise. I know you're a producer and a composer, and you have your own stuff out as well. But who are some of your favorite artists that you've been able to get out and play with?
Let's see here. When I first moved to New York, I kind of I was really, really into that electronic music scene that was kind of like kind of led by Flying Lotus and like not really so much the dubstep like crazy electro like scene as much, but it was like more of the underground electronic artists like Flying Lotus and Thundercat and Hudson Mohawk and this guy Mike Slott. And when I first moved to New York, I realized that Mike Slott lived in New York, and I immediately tried to reach out to him, contact him, and we started hanging out, and we just started making music together, and that was really massively influential on my compositional style, because I kind of saw how he approached composition in a way that I was kind of struggling to do that electronically. It's like, yeah, I could pick up the bass and like, play some chords, and that's how I was making all my music at the time, was like from the bass. And then after meeting Mike, it kind of shifted, and nowadays I don't touch the bass until I like go into the studio with Dana. Like I write everything with harmony and synths and things like that now. And because I saw how Mike was writing using the bass too, which was really, really cool. It was almost like, and it was just like a lot of these things are so common sense, but I never studied composition at Berkeley. I was a performance major and everything, and I just kind of like made my own music, just to, we just make our own music, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't, but like I kind of hit a wall like with how to like use a DAW and like how to make electronic music. Like I was listening to all these guys and I was wondering, how are they doing that? Mm-hmm. And Mike was kind of showing me like, it's like he kind of thinks of it. He doesn't know scales or anything. He's just all by ear and kind of like makes music in a zone. And it's like, okay, that zone can be A flat major. And then it's like the bass is what moves within that A flat major to make all the other different chords, And,
right.
And it's like a modal thing. If anything, it's like modes, right? But it just blew my mind at the time that he would program all these soundscapes and like a key, and then he would have me honestly just be like, okay, now you play bass on it and like move the root around. And it was and we were making this gorgeous ambient tracks. If anything, at first, it was just like, and I realized the power that the bass had in music. Like in that moment, I was like, oh my God.
leading the charge, really.
Yeah, I'm making the composition.
Exactly.
Like that composition is forming before both of our ears and being like, oh wow, there's sections now, because the bass is what's defining the harmonic movement. It's like, it was just, that was back in like 2011, and that was a game-changing moment for sure. It changed a lot of stuff for me, like how I made music at the time, and now how I make music now.
So let's go through the process a little bit of
Sure.
of how you create a composition or a track. Where do you start?
Well, so I use this DAW called Reason, which Berkeley gave us a copy of when we first got to school there. It's like they don't give you Pro Tools or Ableton, or they didn't at the time. They give you it was like Digital Performer and like Reason. And I opened Digital Performer and I went, nope, I don't like this. And then I opened up Reason and I was like, ooh, this looks kind of cool. And it's like, it was very hardware based. Like you put things on a rack and you plug them in like through the back of it was like actually having real synths that you're plugging in, and it was all MIDI. You couldn't do any audio, so they had all their built-in synths and everything. I just started messing with that stuff and still use it to this day. I mean, I still use Reason for everything. I start all my ideas like I come up with chords first. Like I come up with harmony basically. Like on
a keyboard or a piano, or
I try okay. I definitely try to pluck some chords out. I have basic keyboard knowledge, basic scale and harmonic knowledge. I try to like bang out triads if anything at first, and then in the MIDI grid I'll like add the ninths and like I'll like click. I'm like a mouse guy.
I got you.
And I like draw it all in.
The magic of technology.
I know, man, and it's like I've gotten so good at that I know that there's other tools now that are even better and faster, but I'm still kind of like old school with like clicking and just like building chords by listening to stuff. And like I see things like that as like the vertically thing rather than horizontally, if anything, like chord building through like up and down,
Okay.
It's and so like I just build all my chords like that and then kind of sit there and just try things out, try rhythms out. And then I'm like, kind of when I start to figure something out, I need a backbeat. So then usually I'll go into a sample library or whatever, and I'll just add 2 and 4 in just to like have something as a reference for like, so I can turn off the click,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
It's like writing to a DAW click is always just like, I gotta get this out of here as soon as possible. Yeah. So like once I kind of like have something at least grounded in harmony or like an idea or whatever, then it's like just adding like a snap, and those snaps and things end up in the final tracks. If anything, I'll just end up layering them in with Dana or whatever it might be. So it's just like a little bit fatter. But that's a whole other thing. Layering drum sounds, that's like a whole other thing that's really, really fun to do. But yeah, that's it. All kind of starts in Reason, and then it kind of gets thrown around to some other DAWs too. I'm a little bit crazy, and I like to use Ableton for some stuff, and then I mix it all in Pro Tools, and then I master it all, and like I use Ozone from Isotope, and so I just like fly things around,
As far as the inspiration for different vibes and melodies, what is your process?
Lately I've been okay. So like I've been really. I took a tour to Japan like a couple years ago with Dana. It's my first time there. And we went to the arcades, and I was listening to all the music in these arcades. I mean, it's primarily the short answer is video game music. I just love video game music. I listen to it all the time. I just have it on in the background while I'm doing stuff. I'm very nostalgic.
Wait a second. So where do you find video game music?
Oh, YouTube. Just YouTube.
Oh, okay.
It's like,
okay.
It's all on YouTube. I have huge playlists of just like.
Now I'm just showing my age, man. I just remember video game music from when I played video games. I'm gonna have to look up YouTube now.
No, it's all good. I kind of just realized this like not really too long ago that like people have been archiving this stuff on YouTube, and you can kind of pretty much find everything,
really?
Like every OST, they call them OSTs, original
You're
soundtrack.
Seriously blowing my mind right now. I'm writing it down.
And it's I'm telling you, it might change your life, because it just feels good to put on, like, I don't know, like you put on the Mario Kart soundtrack and you're just like, yeah, like it just feels really good, So video games is the short answer. And then when I went to Japan a couple years ago, hearing like modern day arcade music, like how they're making it in Japan, it's really bright and like really like poppy and vocal chop, it's like they learned like all the best stuff from that dubstep movement, like the Skrillex and like Deadmau5 and like all those dudes. They like took all the best stuff of that and then molded it with like video game influence, and it's just really bright and chippy and happy, you know. And so I have a Spotify playlist that I've been kind of really always going back to, and I think I just called it Japan I Love So Much. And it's like, it's all these artists that are like, I don't know, like I'm trying to remember, there's like, I'll pull it up here, just I'll drop some artists names.
No, please do.
Maybe some of the listeners can check these guys out, because they're,
if you have it pulled up, play something.
Oh man. All right, so Japan, I found it. Japan I Love So Much. There's a band called In the Blue Shirt, which I'm not actually sure if you can hear this over. You might not be able to. You probably. Okay. I'm playing it now.
You're calling it out. It's all right. Somebody can look it up.
Yeah, exactly. There's a band called In the Blue Shirt. You Know Me, which is like YUNOMI. Elliot Sue, and then there's a band called like Happy Kuru Kuru. And like I've just been, when you go down the rabbit hole on Spotify of like, you know, fans also like, and then it's like, you know, I've never heard of any of these, and they're all, I think, pretty much all in Japan, or at least I think, and because some of it is not even in English, you know, the song titles and everything. Oh, wow. You're just in you know, Japanese character land, and you're just like, oh boy, I don't know what this is. Like the band name is in Japanese characters, and then the song name's in Japanese characters, but the music is just so dope. Tarina, which is another good. Snail's House has been one of my favorite too. So that's like what presently I've been like really, really digging.
It's so interesting, man. It's like it's amazing to me how universal number one music is, and then it pulls up different nostalgic moments, just a specific tone, or I can listen to a song and I can still see my bedroom ceiling from when I was in 5th grade.
Exactly.
By seriously like 3 notes. Yeah. And by just a specific keyboard sound, or it's crazy. It's really crazy. And the girl that I liked back then, you know what I mean?
It transports you instantly. It just feels good. Like it just feels. Anytime I listen to any of those old OSTs, I'm just like, man, this feels great. So when I sit down to try to write stuff, I try to give myself that same feeling, and I keep searching until I kind of have something that gives me at least a similar nostalgic feeling. You know, something that just makes me feel good. I keep searching until that happens. You know, it's like that's great though. Experimentation and exploration and not being afraid is key, I think, when creating. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's harder as you get older, for sure. Is what I'm learning, is like to have the time to like experience. So I have to like use like my you know, especially with like, you know, not. Usually I used to like use tour time as the time to be like, you know what, I'm going to open this plugin I've never used. You know, like I bought it like 5 years ago. I'm going to like take the time to explore and just see what's in there. Yeah. And I kind of missed that in the past year and a half. Like when things started like shifting, you know, during COVID, it was like, oh crap. Now it's like, I do have a lot of time, but you know, instead I got really into like video and like 3D animation and stuff like that. And plugins kind of like took a back seat, but I'm really looking forward to like, hopefully when I kind of like have some time, like travel time is always the best time, basically, is to like sit there and just be like, I don't know, let me try doing this in Reason. I've never tried to plug this thing into that thing and just see, you know, sometimes there's like, you know, sometimes you plug the wrong thing in and it's just automatic like hiss and static, and you're like, oh, nope, plug it back. It's like, that's what's kind of cool about Reason, is that it reacts like a real thing. So like it's just a very cool DAW, and it just keeps getting better and better, in my opinion. And just now you can do audio and do all these things. It's like now a real DAW, but for the longest time it was just MIDI. So like I was just working with MIDI, and I was like for years I was just trying to make MIDI sound really good, which was very hard. And that's kind of why video game music was kind of like, well, you default to it because it is what it is. Yeah. And it just sounds great. You don't have to like, you know, I was like trying to make like stuff with like MIDI strings and stuff like that, and it just wasn't sounding right. And I was like, well, what if I just like try, you know, like video game music just sounds like video. It's like, it just is what it is.
It does. It has that thing. It's what it's. Oh, that sounds like video game music for sure.
It's like any of the Final Fantasy soundtracks, like are just like MIDI demos in today's modern sense, right? It's like we listen back to them and it's like, but it's. I can, if anything, like they've re-recorded all these soundtracks with real orchestras and everything like that, and I always listen to them and I'm always like, wow, yeah, cool, but
I missed that thing. Yeah,
I miss those fake strings, so I always go back to the old.
I get it. Well, it brings that element of what's the word
Well, it's like what you said. It's like transports me back to sitting in my room. I see it in my head as soon as I listen to those soundtracks. I like remember sitting with my cousin playing these games. Him having the strategy guide, not him telling me what's next. He's like, all right, you're gonna turn left over there. All right, yeah, go down the hallway. Oh, hey, there's gonna be a boss fight coming up. Make sure you have fire connected to all materia. All right, I'm like, okay, cool. Like,
yes.
You know what I mean? It's like, like, cool.
Yeah, and artificial was the word that I was thinking of, was because you're going into an artificial world really by jumping into a video game. So
absolutely, man. That's just been my favorite thing.
That's awesome. You played with Alan Holdsworth?
I did, man. I was Alan's last bass player, and that was like, God, that's like 5 years ago now. That okay. I got to make music with Alan, man.
How did that all come about?
That came about through my relationship with Virgil Donati, who
drummer. Cool.
I played on Virgil's first solo album, or maybe not his first solo album, but I played on his. I met him like in 2012. He asked me to do some recording for his album, and it was for a song called 11, which is off of In This Life, and. Yeah, I mean, I just kind of, it was pretty crazy because it's the first time he sent me the song and it's called 11, and then I was like, oh no, and then I listened to it and it's in 11, it's like an odd time signature.
Oh my
gosh. And at the time I was kind of like, oh, like how do I wasn't too comfortable with odd, like even back in 2012, I was kind of like certain time signatures like that. I was like, wait, how do I count this? Like, how do I do this? So I learned a lot. I learned how to play an 11 because of that song. It was kind of cool. And it was like nice because it's a recording, so like you can sit there and like mess it up and be like, oh, okay, no, I know what I need to feel it like. You can go back and be like, right. All right, I know that's how I should feel it. Like that's how, so I kind of like learned how to. And and then Virgil, whenever he'd swing through New York, he would always ask me to sit in with his band, and we'd play an Alan Holdsworth tune called "Water on the Brain," and it was me and Anthony Crawford, his actual bassist. We'd like, go back and forth with each other, and we have really, really different. Anthony's like, he's a very different player than me. He's played bass on all the Chon. If you know Chon, like he played bass on all the Chon records. He's a amazing player. He like two-hand taps and like does all this, but he's got a unique voice, and so it was always really cool to like duel back and forth. It's like it was like we both have unique, like distinct voices from each other. Basically, mm-hmm. It's not like two, back pickup guys just like trying to go at each other. It's like it's more musical than that. It was really, really cool, and Virgil just always kind of like, we just always talk, and just always, I knew he was playing with Alan, and he sent me the text that changed my life. Like he knew how much I've always loved Alan's playing and everything. I was trying to get Alan on a song for one of my albums, and I knew Virgil was my connection. I was like, hey, and he actually talked to Alan about it, and Alan was going to do it, and then Alan didn't do it. Like,
well, it's like for a lack of better words, he just didn't.
He just didn't do it, and it's fine because it's mainly because he kept saying, he was like, oh, I just like can't play anymore. He would say like really, like he'd tell Virgil, he's like, oh, he doesn't want an old geezer like me on his record or something. I'm like, what are you? It's like, you tell him.
Yeah.
Stop talking like that. Like, that's not, he's a hero of mine, and I'd love to make music with him. Like, come on, like, and then he sent me the text that changed my life, where it was just like, dude, Alan's doing some gigs like coming up in a couple months. Do you want in? Wow. And I remember I kind of like sat on that text for like a day, because it was kind of like, I don't know. It's just like I was just reading it and just being like, oh my God. Like
so like, prior to that point, had you had done a lot of higher profile gigs?
Higher profile
or pro gigs from coming out of, how far back were you in college?
Well,
at that point?
Yeah, I definitely had like played with people, just like, like kind of just had like, I started in Boston playing with David Fuszynski, and then recorded with Jack DeJohnette and Kenwood Denard back at, like, I'd kind of always like,
which are legendary drummers.
Yeah. Oh man. Like I learned a lot through those sessions, and got to like, actually I never had coffee before until Jack DeJohnette asked if anybody wanted coffee. He's going to go get coffee, and I just wanted to spend more time with him. So I was like, yeah, I'll take a cup of coffee. He's like, come with me. And so it was just me and him, and I'd never had coffee before. And he's like, oh, how do you like it? And I was like, oh, however, whatever, man. Like, I don't know what to say. I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm just telling him like, no. And like he was like, oh, I like, I think he liked sugar, and I was like, yeah, sugar sounds great. And I remember like drinking it with him, and I was like wired for that whole session. I was like, oh, this is coffee. Oh,
this is awesome. You mean?
Yeah, no, it was cool. I played a lot of notes the rest of the session. It was dope. But
that's
yeah,
awesome,
no, I mean,
dude.
it was really through Virgil, and I had primarily just been making, I think, my own music. Honestly,
okay.
It's just like I've been making music with Dana Hawkins for over a decade now, and just making YouTube videos. And I think just a lot of people had seen those things, and even Alan had told me that he saw them. And same with all the bandmates that Alan had in the past. Like Gary Husband knew of me, and so like when Virgil said, "Hey, I think Evan Marien, is interested in playing bass," Alan ended up actually kind of talking to somebody and just being like, hey, how, who is Evan cool? Like, and everyone voted me in, which was really cool. Like Jimmy Johnson was like, oh, Evan's awesome. And like, it was really cool. Like I didn't know about this until after the fact. And so that always meant a lot to me, that all these cats like had my back basically. And I didn't even know anybody super well, but they just kind of they were really nice and really sweet. And then, yeah, that gig kind of changed, my life in the sense of like, I mean, it's just like it was a mark, it was a checkpoint, for
a highlight.
It was a goal. It was a goal that I had since graduating Berkeley. And since like I only had a couple people that I really was like, I need to play with them. Like I'm going to play with them. And it was like Wayne Krantz, and then it was Alan Holdsworth, and like Tim Miller. And it's like all these guys I ended up playing with Krantz and Tim after I'd played with Alan. It was like it all kind of just started coming together, honestly, after the Alan gig. It was really, kind of a life-changing thing.
That's amazing, dude. So when you got those and you checked them off your list, and those were career and really, for us as musicians, life goals. Those goals, at least for me, I don't look at it as a career goal, because music is pretty much my life, and I can tell as for you the same. So that, man, congratulations on that.
Thanks, man.
Do you feel like that was the gig that sort of made you feel like legit as a pro player?
I
or
guess
is there a moment where you thought, okay, now I'm doing this? Or was it when you did your own music?
Good question. Yeah, it's honestly like the playing with other people thing has always just been secondary to me. Even though I wanted to play with Alan Holdsworth and Wayne Krantz and all, but I've always wanted to just do my own thing. Ultimately, right. I've always fallen back on that when things were slow in New York, or when, just when things were slow. I just never felt like things ever got slow, because I always had a workload of stuff that I could do on my own stuff. It's like, if anything, it was kind of like a relief. So I would just kind of take us, like I although I didn't have really that many, like, it was like here and there, stuff like with other artists. I always just kind of like did my own thing, and kind of
that's awesome.
Made sure that was always the thing that kind of kept me out of, like, I don't know, worrying about like playing with other people or anything like that. It's kind of like I just made that the priority, and I think so. That's that. Like, so the pro player thing. I still don't really think of myself as a pro player. I just kind of think of I'm just trying to do my thing. I'm just trying to like stay the course as my own person and just be like, all right. And if other people want to make music with me, awesome. I'll see if I'm the right fit. Basically, you know what I mean? Like I'm pretty selective now. Like just in the past like couple of years about what I end up kind of taking on, because it's just I kind of know where my strengths lie, and so I try to gauge where I can be stronger, where I can like be my best basically in the situation.
Right. Well, I think it's very cool that you're approaching your art as an artist as opposed to just a player. So, and what that has done in turn, people recognize that and want to come to you for what you offer, for what you have to offer. And I think that's a goal for, all of us, really.
Man, it's playing bass has always been that thing that, like, I mean, although like at Berklee I studied it and I wanted it to be my thing, it was like after I graduated, that's when I realized I got way more into just computer land, making music with a computer and wanting to get better at that, figuring that out. And I started, like, the bass just started kind of moving further and further behind me. And although I was still like practicing, I guess, I was more just like kind of noodling like for years, like just trying stuff out, like trying to like, at a certain point I stopped trying to play other people's stuff. Like if I knew I was kind of grabbing it from somewhere else, I'd stop and eliminate it from my vocabulary.
Gotcha.
And then when I started doing that, I started pulling everything back to just raw me, which at the time was, I had no language. It was rough. Like,
gotcha.
But I knew that I wanted to pursue this. So it was difficult to improvise even because I didn't feel like I had any so I had to build everything up from scratch, and that took a long time, man. And
I was gonna say, how much work did you put in at sort of creating your own voice on the instrument?
I think it was subtracting stuff. I think at first it's like getting everything. You spend years kind of removing a lot of stuff and sounding like, I don't know. It's just, for me, it's pretty rough to like listen to me like in the early like 2010 to 2012 maybe, and 2013 was kind of like where I started. I can see it in retrospect. That's what's nice about releasing your own videos and music on YouTube over the past decade. It's like I can see that evolution with each video. It's like I'm playing a little bit different, or I'm approaching things a little bit different, and I see it like that. So I don't even think it was conscious. I think it's so easy to look at it like in a matter of like a half an hour. I could watch all my YouTube videos and be like, damn, oh yeah, that's where I started. And now here's where I'm at today. But it's a decade worth of like, I don't know what I did in that day. I think I just played. I think I was just playing and trying shit out. And if I knew that I was playing something from, I was just trying to go for something that maybe like, I didn't even know how to like hear it yet, but I had it in my head and I was kind of like trying to play it, and I'd always like suck at it. And it's like, or my rhythm would stutter. I think it was rhythm. It was like trying to get rhythm more tighter with these ideas, because the notes and the fingerboard stuff, it's like that stuff can get real gooey really fast, but the clarity of it, that's what I think that developed just naturally over time. So it's been a long process. I never really did it that consciously, I guess. I kind of just like started, I looked at my hand one way one day and I was like, oh, what if I did this? Oh, that sounds cool. And then that's just what I kept trying to do and remind myself to do as I'm just playing and improvising. And like, so it's I guess in that aspect, it's a little bit conscious. It's like a little bit of thought, but it's also just kind of like trying it out, failing a whole bunch, and hopefully, just trying to get better at it. Just, like almost trusting that you'll get better at it,
Right. Very cool, man. I mean, it's, you're putting in work, and you're putting in, going back to the sort of experimentation thing to see what works for you. To be able to achieve what you are hearing and what you're feeling at the moment. So kudos. Thanks, man.
I mean, experimentation is like, people don't, it's hard, man, because like you're going to, there's you fail over and over again when you, like, part of experimentation is failure.
Correct.
I would get described, but I was relentless about it. I just didn't quit. Like of course I've struggled with all sorts of issues about my playing, and like, depression about it, and anxiety about it, and the whole thing. I still do the work to this day to try to make it all come together, but like, man, it's just being relentless. You just don't quit. Like, you just keep experimenting until you succeed with it, and then you try to learn from it, and then you try to do something else, and you keep experimenting again, and then it's like this big. You just do that over a decade, and then then you'll come up with like, you'll have a voice somehow. You'll be you regardless, I think,
I agree. Yeah. Great advice, dude. Great advice. Let's go back to gear a little bit. So you
sure.
You're for the most part playing that Ken Smith. What strings are you using?
I use GHS strings. I have like a signature set from them that I've been kind of using for
any particular gauges?
Oh, it's pretty light. They're the low B is a 120, 121 actually, or something, and then the G is a 35.
Oh wow!
So it's like, it's pretty light. It's a quirky set, honestly, because I think the D is actually a little bit heavier than a normal. Like it's a weird set, but I started experimenting back in like at Berklee with string gauges going lighter rather than, like I was using like probably 45s at the time, and my hands were hurting, and I was like trying to go lighter, and I found 40s, and I was like, all right, cool, these feel good. And then my teacher at Berklee, his name is Matthew Garrison, he had a bass tuned E to C, and he had really thin strings. He had this like Fodera bass that had these really thin strings, and he was like, yo man, you got to go light, like try to find like really light strings. I was like, all right. And so I found like a set from Roto Sound at first that had like the 120 through like 35, and then I just never went back. It was like 2008 like that I found that gauge, and I was like, oh, and that's just been like the gauge set. And then when I met GHS a couple of years ago, I told them, like, at first it was like a custom string set that they were just making for me and sending to me, and then I was like, man, you guys like want to make this like a signature? I don't know. I was like being bold. I like had a lot of coffee one day, and I was like, oh, let me just email them. Let me just email them and just be like, yo, you guys want to make like this a thing, like just be super bold about it.
And then you held your breath.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like there's. I think we all have those days where we just feel super bold about stuff.
Well, one thing is for certain, that you'll never know unless you ask. You never achieve what you really want unless you reach for it. So
yeah, exactly, man. I'm the worst that anybody can ever say is just no. Anyway,
right?
I mean, nobody dies from that or anything like that. So.
Yeah.
But I used to almost think like, there's times I still, like do the work on that where it's like, well, what the worst that they can say is no. It's like, oh, let me just ask, It's like going for, shooting for the stars for guests for my next album. Like I'm just emailing all sorts of people. So far, everyone said yes. And
that's awesome.
I'm like, why was I ever worried? And it's partly why my last album took so long, is because I was just kind of stuck on like what I wanted, and like what I wanted. I was like, I want this person, but I'm afraid to like kind of reach out because I don't want to, them to say no. And it took me, and then it's like you just have enough coffee one day, and then you
thanks to Jack for all that.
I mean, it's like it just gives you that, gives you wings.
What about let's see, effects and amps? What are you using?
I use Mark Bass amps.
Oh, cool.
I've been using them since my days at Berklee. I got hooked to them when I first went to the NAMM show. That's like, well, it's like all my, like, I was really into Hadrian Farroud and Elaine Caron. Like all the bass players that I was into at Berklee were like fusion guys, and they all seemed to play Mark Bass. And I played through a Mark Bass, and I was like, oh, I get it. I was like, yeah, because I was all back pickup. I mean, I still mostly back pickup, but I was like all like Jocko style, like, back pickup, and I was like, oh my god, like this, So talked them up at NAMM, and they were like, okay, like, yeah, see ya, kid,
Yeah.
And then I got in this bass player poll, and I ended up placing with like Hadrian and Esperanza Spalding. Back like in 2009 or something. I kind of just asked a lot of people, like I had a really strong social network thing going on MySpace at the time.
Okay. Who was who was MySpace guy? Tom? Was that Tom? Tom was a fan of yours. All right.
Yeah, Tom was a fan. I mean, I've always been in the social networks. I've always been trying to work hard on building stuff. I met a lot of people on MySpace.
I was going to say, would you recommend that bass player, up and coming players, try to make use of social media?
Definitely. I mean, I think it's like it's just it's like what Berklee is like teaching now. Like, you know, they're like, it's music education has almost changed or it's adapting in a way to like acknowledge this other thing that like, yeah, we've seen a lot of people blow up because of Instagram. I think Instagram's probably the one that, but also YouTube is because Instagram, you make these like, I make a lot of short form content. You know, you can make something that's like, you know, like a 30-second clip that has a start, like it feels like a mini composition, you know? And so that's a good platform for that. YouTube is, I guess, a little bit more personal. It's like more like my friend Rick Beato, he's been just kicking ass on YouTube. You know, he just tells stories. He just analyzes. He just sits in the studio, just hangs out and talks. You know, it's the greatest. I mean, like YouTube's a very personal platform. I think you can speak to. So like it's and like my buddy Adam Neely has gotten really successful at YouTube. For kind of like, he just explores music and has been talking about it and making videos about it for a long time, and he's gotten really good at it, and his video editing style has gotten really good too, and and people really have related to that, and it's kind of changed music academia, or is it academia? Macadamia? That's a nut, right?
That's a nut, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of, all these platforms kind of change things, you know, like I it's so weird to be kind of like it's weird because when I have students now, like when I taught at Berklee back in August, and everyone's like wondering about, like, they're thinking, they all have Instagrams, they're all thinking about content, they're all having me like, hey, can you film like a clip of me like sitting here and I'm going to do a post about being at the Berklee. I'm like, right, this is like what they're thinking about, you know, they're thinking about that just as much as getting good on their instrument. They're all, like, I had 4 really, really great kids at this camp who I still think about. We still are talking. We're all in a group chat together on Instagram. They're really, really great players. They're all super young and just trying to, like, you know, make sense of this whole thing. Like, they're growing up with all these platforms. They're growing up with, like, they have the right head on their show. Like, they're thinking of it in the right way, which is really inspiring and cool. They're well aware of, like, the footfall, like the traps of, like, you know, social media and stuff like that. I think it's addictive, you know, like, I think you can get obsessed with it and you can get stuck in comparisons, and I think it can get real unhealthy real fast. So I just try to always tell people it's good to, like, balance stuff out. Like, if I kind of have this routine now where if I'm uploading on the platform, I'll stay on the post and for like 15 minutes just to kind of, it's kind of like what Adam Neely, he told me this like last year or something when we did a hang. He was telling me he kind of like uploads something and he's around just in case anything is like messed up, you know what I mean? Like, anything is like glaringly obviously messed up, then he can, like, you know, you don't want to check into a post 3 hours later and realize it's been up for 3 hours and like there's no audio, you know? Yeah. Like, it's like,
which I've done before. I've done that on accident. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. Dude, we've all been there. So, I mean, it's just so, like, I think it's just about, you know, I recommend it to people. I think it's about having fun with it and just always making it fun, not getting too obsessed with it, posting every day, making it the perfect thing. No, it doesn't have to be anything like that. Just be you, just have fun with it. I think there's a couple things to keep in mind, like make it look good and make it sound good, like quality wise, you know? Right. And I think that just, and that's partly one of the reasons why I love your content so much as well, man.
Oh, thank you, man.
It looks really dope. It sounds amazing, and it looks really dope. Like, you have a really cool aesthetic to it that I don't see from really anybody else.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
So I wanted to shout you out real fast. I know you've been asking me all the questions, and you know, you're a good dude. So I just wanted to let you know that you inspire me.
Oh, thank you so much, man. That means a lot to me. What new players are actually inspiring you? Anybody out there that's like really caught your eye?
That's a really great question. I just think like, I think it's more like I'm inspired by like the work ethic of certain people when I notice like, because I know how much work it takes to like do stuff, you know what I mean? It's like you see like these little things that people churn out and that we can that, you know, some people we just instantly scroll away from, but that person just worked like, you know, worked hard on making it look good and sound good and everything. It's like, yeah, I think I'm really inspired by like what Rick Beato's been doing with his quick lessons thing on Instagram. I really like that. I think he's an awesome
to check
player.
that out. Yeah.
Oof, I just think he's awesome. I've connected with Rick a lot in the past year. We just hang out on Zoom and we talk for like forever. And yeah, he's been a great mentor and just kind of like he's a really cool guy. And he's been really supportive of my music and my thing. And Adam Neely I think is really inspiring. And Mono Neon. I went to school with Dwayne Mono Neon. He's awesome. I mean, he's just like again another guy who is relentless. He didn't quit, man. Like that dude just has been doing that thing for years, and people thought it was weird, right? Like, and I watched people like call it weird on YouTube, and nobody was really watching. And then, man, he just relentless because it's his art, you know.
Yep.
And he
I respect
does it.
that, man.
Did it, man.
I respect
Me
that.
too.
Yeah.
Me too, man. I just like I've been watching his thing for a lot. It's like all these guys I've watched them before. They've all been doing their thing before it got big, but what the thing is consistency.
Mm-hmm.
They just have been doing it, man, and just doing it and doing it and doing it, and they've just been killing it. So like, yeah, I think that's what's been more impressive and noticeable to me is just like when I see somebody out there just doing the thing and consistently doing it, and just doing it, just doing it, being consistent with it, making it look good, making it sound good. And yeah, the notes are great too. If they play some good notes, yeah, then that's awesome too. But
Notes are cool.
Notes are cool.
Do you have anything coming up that you're excited about that you want to mention?
God, it's almost, it's like we're entering the end of 2021, and I'm kind of ready to start a new year, to be honest. Like I need a new set of goals, a new set of like things to align myself with. But that being said, like I'm working on another album, and
awesome.
I'm really excited about it, but it's just taking me a lot longer. I'm just gonna have to develop that patience thing a little bit more with it. I know that this one's gonna be worth the wait, but it's just gonna probably be into 2022 before I do anything with it. But I got some great guests for it. People who I just never thought I'd be friends with, like in this day and age where I'm like, man, I can't believe I'm like, in touch with this person, and I can ask them, like, and they like, it's a weird thing where I'm just like, wow, I can't believe they actually like my stuff. it's like, man, that's really cool. Like they're always really like, really positive and really into it. And they're also like myself, where they're like, well, let me see if I'm a good fit, and like, let me see, like, it's like we all respect each other in this world, but we all got to kind of gauge our strengths and make sure that we can do the best that we can on music, and thankfully, man, I've had some friends like just like come through, and it's been really, really cool. And so I'm just working on another album and just trying to, it's morphing into a thing that I didn't think it was going to morph into. And that's the best part about the journey, is just kind of like, it all changes when you get like live drums on it in the first place. Like, yeah. It's like you go from demo drums to live drums, and you go, oh, that's different. And it makes me want to redo my bass parts.
Totally.
And then I do, because it's like, then it's like, it's like, oh, it becomes a different thing. It becomes more alive, right? It's like, it kind of gets out of this Reason video game world where it becomes a little bit more real. And then I go, okay, now I got real drums. I can take out my demo drums. You know what? I want to put like, why don't I just put like 2 more layers of bass, like bass chords, and like pan them left and right, and like try to just like get into like producer brain mode. And then I'm like, oh, these synths, maybe I can have like my buddy J3PO like replace some of these synths, or just like play over the track just to add some realistic keys, because again, like my keyboard program, it's video gamey, so it's very it's like I'm okay with things kind of being more or less static, right? It's like it's just that thing's playing the part. Maybe the filters are moving or something, but like there is something about the vibe of having a real key player like play stuff and like maybe play a pad that evolves and like I don't know, or just use their they have all these real keyboards like a sequential Prophet,
Yeah, there's a movement that happens when you work with other musicians, live musicians, people that are actually alive performing.
Like live.
That is just this natural kind of like I would compare it to like the movement of air or ocean. It just happens. It's like oxygen coming through. So there's it's just a different thing. You can't replace it really.
Imperfections and all too. Even when there's like stuff that's like, it could be kind of like said like, oh, that's a quirky note on a chord or something. Like sometimes I'll leave that stuff in just because it's like, it's just, sometimes if it just catches the ear, it's like, well, that's better than just being so diatonic and just being like, especially with instrumental music. I think like with vocals, like when it becomes like vocal centric or anything, you kind of don't want to have anything that bends the harmony. Your focus is on the vocals, or your ear is tuned into the vocals. You kind of don't want to distract from that really, or not really, but I don't know. But like with instrumental stuff, you might as well bend the ear a little bit, like bend the journey, like music's through time, right?
Yeah. I think at least personally, I think imperfection is perfection. To be honest with you, it creates slight bumps in the road where it's just real life,
Absolutely, man. So. Do you ever like sometimes I forget to tune?
Yeah, I always do.
like when I make these like little Instagram videos, every once in a while, like I'll make a video and I'll be like, wait, I don't know if I tuned like before. And I'm like, but it kind of sounds good anyway.
Right.
Like I don't know how far off I was, but like I'm like, oh, maybe it's just like, I don't know. Like I guess I'm just not gonna. It starts there, right? And then it's like sometimes like I used to be really like anal about like my rhythm and my tightness and everything. And it's funny how like perspective's an interesting thing. Like I could work like an hour on getting something super tight, and I'll compare it to the first draft take or something an hour, and I'll go, oh, it wasn't really like that. Like I'll walk away for an hour and then come back, and I'll go, oh, there's not really like fresh ears really, like once you're tuned out of it and you tune back in, you go, oh, there's not really that much discrepancy between a take that you spend on that, unless it's like a vibe, Right. But like tightness and things like that. So I've kind of started leaving things a little loosey. I want to say loosey-goosey.
My mom used to say that, dude, all the time.
But yeah, it's like I just kind of like leave things as they are. I don't like, it's so easy to hyper quantize and like do all this stuff in a DAW.
Well, I think there's a time and a place for that kind of stuff, just depending on what you're doing.
Definitely, if it's a vibe, right? Yeah. If it's a vibe and if it just needs to be like that, then we have the tools. But I don't know. I've just been kind of like, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just getting lazier.
Oh, man. I think if it feels good, it's good.
Yeah.
Dude, I want to thank you for getting on here, man. I really appreciate and am inspired by you. And I think you've definitely inspired some people out there today. Any last words of advice for players and producers out there?
Be relentless. Don't quit. Don't ever quit. Don't ever stop doing what you're doing. Don't change your paths. Just keep doing what you're doing and trying to get better at it. But you don't ever stop doing what you're doing. You just be relentless. And then it takes time and patience with stuff. Be patient. But if you're relentless with it, everything will happen.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. That's our show for today. Thank you all for joining us. Stay healthy, stay kind, spread love, all those good vibes and inspiration. And remember, you got this. Follow your path and just play. I'm Josh Paul. I hope to see you all out there sometime soon. And thank you to Dunlop for making this show possible. And be sure to check out Bass Freaks wherever you get your podcasts. All right, everybody. Cheers.